Bro, welcome to another episode of New Orleans Basketball and New Orleans Network podcast. As always, I am your host, Raphael Rattler, joined by my fellow midget brother, Garrick Rattler. What's popping with you, bro?
What up, bro? Still after dealing with so much heat, so much heat. We got a little bit of reprieve, and now it's back with a vengeance. It is hot as a mug outside. If you don't have to be outside, I would advise you not to go outside. But nah, man, everything's all good. Enjoyed summer league, man. Enjoyed the WNBA All-Star game, man. Shout out to Brittany Griner for making her return back to the All-Star game. She was cooking out there. Shout out to Sabrina Ionescu. Just
Bruh.
Hey, man, somebody NBA need to see what's up with Sabrina, man. Somebody need a point guard because that girl could hoop, boy. And she put up 37 points in the 3-point contest, which is an NBA WNBA record. I saw Steph tweeting about they're gonna have to get a contest together to see who's the best shooter. I'd like to put some money in on Steph at that time. But shout out to Sabrina. But nah, man, it was a great celebration of women's basketball, and I enjoyed it. So now we're in the doldrums of the NBA. Joe Cronin said it's gonna take some months to trade Dame to Miami. So, I guess we're in a stalemate. So it is what it is, man. But how's everything on your side?
Everything is blessed on our end. Same type of thing. This summer feels like hotter than most summers. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's not right. It ain't right. It ain't right.
It just feels different. But to your point, the more disappointing part is that we got to wait till FIBA basketball to get any type of relevant basketball for a while. At least the WNBA will be going back to their season, but any NBA, you're going to have to wait a couple months, just like you're going to have to wait for the new 2K. Before we get too far into the show, make sure you guys follow us on Twitter, on IG, on TikTok. That's NO Basketball, no E. Anything you follow us on social, again, we're growing the page. We're going to have some new stuff coming up for you in the season. Make sure you like the episode below, and most importantly, subscribe to New Orleans Basketball. So we did this exercise last summer, and it was a fun one. Like, it's hard. Like, I don't know about you, but it's hard to like feel confident with your answer because, like, well, maybe. But last summer we did because of the Pelicans and because of the nature of where they were last summer. It's crazy. It sounds like a broken record, but last summer they decided to not make a whole lot of moves besides getting Dyson Daniels, and this summer they decided to not make a whole lot of moves besides drafting Jordan Hawkins and Cody Zeller, and again, maybe a trade to be had at some point for rim protection. But for the most part, the Pelicans leaned in on the fact that they're comfortable with their roster. They're comfortable with the talent, the youth around this team, the camaraderie, the chemistry around this team. And they just need to do some growing up internally from all areas to get where they want to go in terms of the postseason. And so what we did last summer was we took a look at the growth of different players and how their growth may impact the team going into the next season. So just before we jump into it and people start looking at us cockeyed, just remember that it's not necessarily who's the best player on the team or whose growth could skyrocket or whatnot, but whose growth means the most to the Pelicans next season and things like that. So we want to start off. We're going to break it into two sections, starting with 10 and going down to 6, and then we'll have another episode 5 going down to 1 and things like that. Before we get started, I'm excited, bro. I think our answer is going to be a little bit different than last year because there's a couple changes that have happened last year. But who you want to start first? Again, this is snake draft, just like always. But you want to start first, or you want to give me one?
Yeah,
right,
sure.
Who's your number 10? Who's your number 10?
So my number 10 of whose growth is important to the Pelicans in their upcoming season is the vet, man, is Larry Nance. I got Larry Nance at 10 simply because again, I keep harping on the fact that I watched what Kevin Love brought to the team last season for Miami Heat, right, and as well as Kyle Lowry. But if you listen to Larry Nance talk, he mentioned about how he's training to play small, right? Training to play smaller because, that's something he was asked to be basically the backup center last season. So you have to train a little differently going into the season, knowing that like you're going to be the backup center and things like that. Well, now that he talks about training to play smaller, I'm asking, can he be the Kevin Love as far as floor spacing, as far as veteran leadership, as far as rebounding for the team next season, right? Can Kevin, can you step into a bunch of different roles? Sometimes you may have to be that backup five and play down low and bang. But for a majority of the part, can you get out there and help space the floor, whether you're playing next to Zion, whether you're playing in Zion's role and there's another big behind you, and you're out there with maybe Brandon Ingram and CJ. Maybe you're out there with the reserve team, right, with Trey Murphy and Dyson Daniels. But when it comes down to it, he's going to have to be able to make some shots and make some open threes. And so, we've seen his ability to rebound. We've seen his ability to play inside and put back dunks and be around and be active on the. I think if he comes into the season with a renewed focus to be that floor spacer, that stretch four, if he can become a corner three, PJ Tucker type of big when Zion's down the floor, crashing down the floor, and you want to have Larry Nance kind of play those bigger guys. If he on defense, on offense, if he's able to stand in those corners and hit those threes, and get close to a 40% corner 3-point shooter, I think that expands the Pelicans' ability to run offense for Zion and have Larry Nance out there. Whether it's still JV, and maybe Larry Nance is playing some stretch forward with a big lineup of Zion, Brandon Ingram, and Trey. Just a whole bunch of different things that you can do if he comes into the league and is closer to a 40% 3-point corner shooter. So that's why Larry Nance is at my 10 spot for my growth. What you want to go? You want to comment on Larry? Because I'm sure he's on your list. Or do you want to give us your number 10?
So actually, Larry Nance did not make my top 10 because I kind of feel like Larry Nance is who he is. Like, he's a versatile player. I don't think he's getting anywhere close to 40%. Now, he said he shot 40% from quarter threes, but that was on a very small sample size. Again, I kind of think he is who he is at this point. And if he could just stay upright, like, I think that's a good player. And so I'm not counting on his growth per se. I did have an honorable mention in a Darion C. Brown because I think his skill set could be valuable at some point throughout the season. Same thing with Najee. I kind of feel like Najee is the player who he's going to be. His 3-point shot might get a little bit better, but I'm not sure how much growth in terms of ceiling there is for Najee Marshall. But my number 10 might be a little surprising. I'm going with Dyson Daniels here. He's a young player, so you kind of question why he would be so low, and you just watched him in Summer League. But the thing with Dyson is, for what I think he needs to grow on the most, I don't know if he's going to have the biggest opportunity to do so, right? And I think, and that's on the offensive end, right? I think that, again, you look at his defense, the Summer League, even last year as a rookie, and it was ideal. Again, you just watched it with her, be like, damn, how does a young player come in the league playing defense like that? And then you see it out of Dyson again, like, man, those are remnants that you can use absolutely. His offensive game is different from Herb's, but I just think his ability to shoot is going to take a while. But you just saw it in Summer League. It wasn't great. His confidence looked better. He was shooting them with less hesitation, but I still think that it's going to take a minute, for his offensive game. And so I'm a little bit hesitant on how much he will grow next season. I think he'll play a factor. He's going to play minutes. He should be in the rotation. I just don't know how much him excelling to that next level impacts the team's wins and loss total. So that's kind of how I am with him. I just want him to take care of the ball and not, get stripped every time an opponent tries to pick him up at half court, stuff like that. We'll go snake style. So I'll be going with my number 9 here. Similar to what we just talked about with Larry Nance, I'm going with EJ Liddell as my number 9. And it's weird because we talk about growth, but technically this is his rookie season. But I just want to know, can he carve out a role? Because I think it's so important. You kind of saw him come along as the Summer League progressed. Like, he got more and more confident. He had a little bit more bounce in his step as you got through the different games. But with EJ, his skill set is a little bit different offensively. Just like we just talked about, I don't know if Larry Nance is necessarily getting to 40%. I think EJ is that type of shooter that if he's shooting wide open catch and shoot shot. I think that's more the PJ Tucker type player on this roster. And so in that scenario, can you be a Larry Nance, not only substitute, but insurance policy? How do you keep Larry Nance upright? You play EJ Liddell throughout the season. Like there's Larry can't play 35 minutes a game on night 4 like it just can't happen because we've seen it doesn't work. He doesn't get to the end at full strength. And so with EJ's ability to switch and defend and help on the weak side in terms of rim protection and things like that. Now he's 6'7", just like Larry Nance. Like he ain't 7 foot tall, so he can't guard the Jokic's and stuff like that. But he can help in different areas. And so if he could take that step to show again he belongs, which I think he does, but just getting his footing as a rookie and knowing what to do in those live situations and getting his feet underneath him after the injury, I think there's an impact he can play. So that's my number 9. Who you got at 9?
We're already differentiating because EJ is on my honorable mention. Another guy, I agree with everything you say. For me, it's just, will Willie Green, go to EJ Liddell? We've seen how much he relies on Larry Nance, and we know about the know-how and the comments like that. We've just seen it, and so I'm not sure that's the kind of the same way you feel about if Darian Seabryan is going to get that opportunity to get on and show some of those things. I think EJ is a guy that is going to be that insurance for Larry if Larry isn't playing. And so when he does come into the game, can he rebound? Can he do some of those activity things that we talked about that he does so well on the defensive end? But number 9 is where I have Dyson Daniels. I think that, if he could come in and kind of solidify one of the spots of the spectrum offensively, right? So what I mean by that is if he's going to be the backup point guard, put a chokehold on it, right? Everybody loves Jose. Kyra's still the lottery pick. But if Dyson is the jewel, right? He is the lanyard that fell into the lap. And he has that extra thing that you push into the on his side, saying that he's tall, right? He's 6'7", 6'8" in height. And so, if he's going to be the backup point guard, come in, like you mentioned, come in with better ball security, come in with better confidence in your dribble, learn the system, learn the guys around you, learn where those guys like the ball, and also be even take a step up defensively, right? We saw it in the summer league, play in those passing lanes, be even more aggressive, show that you deserve a rotation spot. And if that's not, if the backup point guard, if that's not the way you want to use it, then if you're going to be a wing player, then you have the space and opportunity to do that. And if Jose tends to be that backup point guard, then you have to get better with the jumper, right? You have to get better at the jump shot. You have to get better at attacking the jump shots, and being able to play one-on-one, even if that jump shot isn't happening, right? Because even if the defense isn't pressed up on you because you're not a shot maker, there's still going to be a lot of times where you're going to get one-on-ones because you have Zion, you have Brandon Ingram, you have CJ McCollum. So if the ball swings back to you and your defender isn't on you to play a jump shot, can you play one-on-one and get to the rim, finish through contact, be strong, and things like that? And so I think if you just solidify a side of the offensive spectrum. If you're going to be the backup point guard, go in and take the job from Jose Alvarado. If you're not going to be the backup point guard because that's not what you're comfortable doing just yet, then you have to find ways to contribute as a wing player outside of just playing defense. So his growth and determining which side of that offensive spectrum that he solidifies and puts a chokehold on, I think that that's going to bear fruit for the Pelicans on the court. And then also, if there is decisions to be made at the trade deadline and things, if he comes in and plays, and has another step up and solidifies himself as the backup point guard, then other decisions and conversations can be had later on.
Dunk the damn ball, Dyson. That's
please.
Every time you get the ball, go dunk the ball on that ground. Okay, snake style. Who you got at 8?
All right, so at 8, mic drop here. I got the big fella. I got Zion.
Ooh, okay.
All the way at 8. And once again, let's say it. It's not whose growth. Like Zion is clearly the best player on the team.
Right.
Understandable, generational talent. But I think number one, Zion is already so good. The Pelicans were number 1 in the West in December with Zion playing at the top of his powers. MVP, considerations and things like that. The injuries, obviously, we could harp on, can you get better health wise? But that's not where I'm going with Zion. For his, his growth, adding mid-range scoring. I did not say a jumper. I said mid-range scoring. I watched earlier today. I've been watching a bunch of old NBA games. Well, not old, but from the past season. And I watched a Clippers Nuggets game. And I just watched it. You know the outcomes already. So I'm watching it just for the basketball. And I'm watching Nikola Jokic hit floaters, hit runners, hit teardrops, hit push shots, all of these things, and you hear all this talk about how Nikola Jokic is never hurt, and it's because he doesn't play above the rim. He's not jumping, and he's not landing on people's feet and pushing off his joints and things. But being able to score without having to jump off 2 feet and things like that in the mid range is such a weapon, because if you have that, it especially for a guy like Zion, how do you play a guy who can drive past you but can also hit a floater or hit a push shot it's hard to play that pick and roll. And now when you got shooter around you, another year of CJ McCollum, like there's just a lot of things to worry about. And I think if Zion gets a mid-range jumper, a mid-range scoring aspect, I think that is the type of things that you're doing. And he fancies himself as a Biggie stan, so I want him to go back to dreams, right? I want him to go back to dreams. We heard him talk about how he wanted to be the defensive player of the year, how he wanted to be one of the greats defensively. Go back to those dreams. Go back to those times that you wanted to devote yourself to that side of the ball. The tools are there. Be dominant on the defensive end. Be that defensive stalwart, and that has that, what we call that reputation of, oh man, is Zion coming on his help side to get this block? Do I have to take an extra step to look where number one is? Those things will help the Pelicans defensively in ways that we hadn't seen, even with when he got off the floor. So I think Zion is so good that I think there are a couple people whose growth would mean more to the Pelicans. There obviously is space for him to grow. But I think that if he can add mid-range scoring, whether it be floaters, push shots, teardrops, things like that, and then go back to those dreams. Shout out to Biggie of being the best defensive player and committing yourself to that side of the ball. I think that will rise all of the boats in the Pelicans, following the leader on the defensive end. So I got Zion at number 8.
Okay, I respect that. I got him on the list too, a little bit. All right, my number.
Oh, you
8,
do? Oh,
my number 8. We just talked about it a little bit. Is Willie Green. I want to know. You just talked about will EJ getting on his opportunities? If he can't contribute in a certain way because he's a young player. Same thing for Dyson. Will he able to take Najee's spot in the rotation early in the year and stuff like that? I just want to know if Willie Green's going to be more flexible. Because again, through this offseason, the changes have not necessarily been on the roster. They've been in the coaching staff. They've been in the analytics department, the medical staff, the way that they're approaching the season, right? And even the guys that have been talking about what they need to do to prepare themselves in terms of keeping themselves throughout the season. I think a big part of that also is on Willie Green. What you've learned is that you can't only rely on veterans. Like there was a point in last season where Josh Richard gets traded, and in the same week he plays over Trey Murphy, and it's like, no wonder you can't score, And so, like in those scenarios, you got to be willing to suffer some offense for defense. That's what it is, right? Like young players in the NBA, and nobody is Herb Jones and Dyson Daniels. Most people struggle on that side of the floor, and so typically people don't like to start rookies because either they don't know where to be, or young players because they don't know where to be, or they know how to defend. But sometimes the Pelicans were the 6th best team defensively in the league last season, and guess what? They missed the postseason. So like you got to be able to be a little bit flexible and play the Kyra Lewises and play last season the Jackson Hayes, even if you don't know what you're going to get sometimes, because that's just what the team needs. And so I'm a little bit curious on that end. The other side is how much flexibility and how much of the philosophy shift are you going to lean toward James Borrego? Obviously, last season, a lot was dedicated on BI and CJ because that's all you had. For a lot of the season, you didn't have a lot of options. You kind of were faced with what you got. But in that scenario, how much are you willing to make it more about the team versus everything's got to funnel through Brandon Ingram and everything's got to funnel through CJ? Because at times, I think that's what shot some of the young players' confidence because they're like, well, I don't know if I should shoot it. Let me pass that thing back to BI. And I think that deters from them a little bit because then they're like, I might get pulled off the court if I miss the shot or if I miss this defense assignment. So I'm just more curious how much of flexibility and how much leeway is given to maybe other members of the staff to kind of control a little bit about what happens with the roster and what happens with the offense in particular, kind of moving forward next season.
So I know this is a snake draft, but my 7 is Willie Green. So I'm gonna just piggyback off of what you say. Listen, I agree with everything you said to a T. The offensive philosophy given into James Borrego, you brought him in, trust him, right? Let him do some things with the teams that maybe isn't in your comfort zone. A lot of times growth doesn't come from comfort. And so you have to be able to give these guys an opportunity to go out and bump their heads a couple of times. But just know that it will pay off dividends. 82 games in the season. Lots of minutes to be played, and you can't just keep running through the same veterans over and over again and expecting them to be at the end of the season healthy and expect the younger guys to be ready to contribute when they inevitably need to, right? We saw Kyra Lewis and Jackson Hayes get thrown into a play-in game and they hadn't played barely all season. So you will need them, right? If you played the veterans during the regular season, the end result is that they're not going to be ready. I mean, they're not going to be healthy and at full strength or close to it. And so you'll inevitably need the younger players. And if they haven't been playing all season, they won't be ready to play. So I agree with you 100%. I think one thing to add to that is that it's going to sound crazy for a man in his now 3rd year, but learn your team, right? This will be the hopefully, knock on wood, the first time in a while that he'll have these 3 guys, meaning Brandon Ingram, CJ, and Zion, and now Trey Murphy and Jordan Hawkins. Like, you're going to have to learn these guys, right? You're going to have to learn where they like the ball and things like that, because this is just a fresh new team for Willie Green, having guys available to play, right? We saw the beginning of last season, that Nets game, the first game of the season, the Pelicans looked like gangbusters, but like they still weren't as good as they could have been. And you never really saw them inching towards it. Part of it is because of health and people being out, but I think part of it is Willie Green, going through the things that he knows and trusting the things that he knew and leaving it at that, right? Zion he does like to play, with the ball in his hand, but sometimes you can get him a back cut, or maybe he would like a 1 or 2 post ups where he can want to get a shimmy and going. It doesn't have to 90% be point Zion, and then when Zion sits down, everything goes through Brandon Ingram, and then if BI's out there with CJ, everything goes through CJ. Like, there are ways to move these pieces on the chessboard to get them into the spots that they feel better. I think that having James Borrego on helps that, but it does fall upon Willie Green to kind of learn those guys and feed that information into Borrego and get those guys in positions where they are comfortable. That is not just, hey, you stand at the top of the paint and have everybody look at you. Or we might run this one play where Trey Murphy runs from one side of the floor to the other side of the floor, and everybody in the arena watches him as he does it. Get these guys moving, get these guys in positions where they feel comfortable. So Willie Green is at my 7. So what you got for your 7, bro?
Yeah, and to put a ball on the Willie Green thing, I think that the same way we ask for a longer leash from the young players, I think there needs to be a shorter leash with some of the veterans. Like, there's some times where some of the veterans would take terrible shots and there would be no repercussion. Like, they knew that they were just going to be out there. And I get you got to let people play through things. But there are times where, again, we've talked about this roster and that there's a section of the roster where everybody is somewhat the same. Your skill set's a little bit different, but you're all on 2K, 70, 75. You're all about the same. So you should be able to have a little bit more flexibility and pull someone out if someone's game is having an off game. My number 7 is Jordan Hawkins. The reason why I have him so high, even though he's a rookie, we've been talking about this, and he's a young player, is because I think he just brings something to this team that it just has not had in a long time. And if he can do that, it's going to be hard to keep him off of the floor. What has been the formula for the LeBron? Everybody talks about Zion being like Giannis and being like Shaq and like LeBron here and like Charles Barkley here. What's the common denominator? You surround those guys with shooters, right? This team lacked shooting last year, and you drafted the best shooter in the draft. You don't draft him to sit on the bench, right? And so what I'm looking for from him is, first of all, just like I said on a previous episode, he needs to live in the gym. He needs to be in the gym from now until the next time we see him, because that strength is going to mean so much. But can you hold up defensively? Like, again, you don't have to be great, but you got to be serviceable. People are going to hunt him no matter what, because he's the smallest guy on the court in terms of weight. People are going to hunt him, but can you hold your own? Can you not be a liability on that end? Because, man, what he can bring on the offensive end is just so important. But the biggest thing with him, just like Trajan Langdon said it, we saw it in the summer league. He went through shooters go through droughts. It happens, but you got to make them. And again, his situation is going to be different playing with the likes of Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum and Zion and Trey and stuff like that. Like, he's not going to be asked to create a whole lot. He'll learn the game and the tempo of the NBA game a little bit more, but you got to hit the wide open ones, because that's what's going to keep him on the court. And so if he can steadily grow throughout the seasons and have the opportunities to grow without the season, have the opportunities to miss 4 shots in a row and not get yanked off the court, like, have the opportunity to make the mistakes on the defensive end and grow and learn so that he can help you at the end, like you just saw from Christian Braun from the Nuggets win a championship in his rookie season. If you can get that from a young player like that, I just think he helps take this team to another level. So that is my number 7 player. I will go ahead and continue the snake and go with number 6 as our last topic for today. Here's where I have Zion. I think this summer for him, everyone talks about your maturity and growth and things like that, and you talk to the piece of just adding more things to decrease how many times his body hits the ground and how much contact he has to take. I get it. LeBron's number 1 asset, even at age 38, is going HB dives to the goal. Like, that is what he is. That is what he's always been, and that's what he will walk out into the rest of history knowing what he does best. Zion, I'm not asking him to go to the rim less. That's not what I'm saying. But take opportunities where, again, you saw the floater, you saw the jumpers at points through the season where he's like, man, I'm a perfectionist. I only shoot it if it's going in. You got to take some, even if they're going to miss it, because that's how you open up the game. Again, we haven't seen Zion in a playoff series. People are going to defend him differently in the playoff. What is your counter to that? How are you going to be able to expose how people are building their wall around you? Can you add something else just to help you, right? So the spirit of evolving is what I'm looking for with Zion. I 1000% agree from the defensive mentality. People look at Zion and think he's a minus defender. I look at Zion and say, man, that guy has all the tools to be a good defender. A really good defender. You got the athleticism, you have the quickness, you have the size, you have the strength, you have the vertical, you have everything it takes to be good defensively. I think it's just the mentality to want that. And some of that has to do with the shape that you're in. Not that he was in bad shape throughout how he played last season, but again, we talk about if you're going to be great on offense, it's hard to be great on offense and defense at the same time. You're exerting so much energy unless you're one of them ones where you train to prepare for that and know that you're going to take on a defense assignment and the mentality that I'm going to be great on this end one way or the other. And I think he has the ability to do it. You were watching old games. I've been watching December. I don't know why, but I've been watching December Pelicans for a lot. And there were times where Zion was making plays defensively that were changing the game. Obviously, he was great on offense, but his game-to-game defensive impact was growing. And if he can build off that and start the season that way, I just think that's something that is different from his game, is evolving in the mentality of who he is as a player. So that's my number 6 player, Zion Williamson. Who you got at 6, bro?
To close up this episode at 6, I got another veteran. I got CJ, man.
Okay.
I think CJ is coming into a season where Trey Murphy is nipping, right? He is nipping at everybody at his heels, and everybody can see it. All right, everybody can see Trey's fit in the starting lineup, right? And so I think the first thing for CJ is his ability to understand that leadership comes in a variety of different ways, right? It's not just going in and telling people what to do. It's not just speaking up whenever you need to. Sometimes you have to lead by example, and sometimes you have to lead by sacrifice. Can you do that, right? And so I think when you think about CJ McCollum and what he's going to be asked to do this season, when you incorporate the intent, the growth from Trey Murphy that everybody expects, and then Jordan Hawkins also coming in and adding some additional shooting, like CJ won't be the primary shooter on the team anymore. Even with Trey Murphy out there, CJ was always the guy. If you remember the game where Jose Alvarado brought the team back, I think it was against Denver, and had a whole bunch of points. And then in the full quarter, they went to CJ McCollum to close him out because that was the shooter. And, CJ wasn't able to close him out. CJ is still a fantastic player. He is one of the most respected guys in the league for a reason, right? It's not just because of the guy he is, it's because of what he can do on the floor. But there's going to be times where his shot, the things that he does well, isn't the things that are the best for the offense at that point in time. Is the best for the team at that point in time. And so I think, if he can come into this season and understand that leadership is going to look a lot different when it comes to things that he does on the floor. But also, I think that, he can continue to work on being comfortable playing off ball, catching and shooting. Know that is going to be where you're going to make a lot more impact, right? The dribble pull-ups, the contested mid-range jumpers, those are signature CJ shots that everybody knows that's what CJ feels comfortable doing. But it's going to be a time where you're on the floor with Zion and he has it rolling, or you're on the floor with BI and he has it rolling, and you're going to have to pass for you to get to a better shot for CJ. I mean, for Brandon Ingram, for Zion, for Trey Murphy. You're still going to be able to have the effect that you have. You'll still be able to compete at a high level and have that veteran leadership. But I think is he ready to face some of the sacrifice that he's going to have to make when it comes to shot selection, when it comes to shot attempts, when it comes to passing up good shots for better shots. Is he going to be able to do that? And listen, CJ can still get his 20. CJ can wake up and get 20 in his sleep while he's still sleepwalking. He could get 20, but I think he's going to have to approach that in a very different way. If the Pelicans are going to remain healthy and get to where they are, it's going to be because Zion, it's going to be because Brandon Ingram, and it's going to be because CJ accepted a role and accepted that he is now, part of a big 3.5, maybe even a big 4, depending on how good Trey Murphy becomes. And so it's going to be a change. And we talk about changing philosophy for Willie Green. It might be a change of philosophy for CJ, right? CJ has been his entire career a number 1 at Lehigh, a number 2 with the Trailblazers for his entire career, and came to the Pelicans and was in between being a 2, 3, and then some days 1. Now it's like, okay, you may even have to become number 3.5, right, in that big 3, as opposed to Trey Murphy taking more shots. But know that is still part of leadership. That is still part of the responsibility of being a guy that's in charge of all of the leadership or qualities and things like that. And so I'm interested to see if he could come into the season and make those adjustments. So CJ McCollum is at my number 6.
Cool. I mean, we only went through half the list and already we did. I can't wait to see the top 5 because I got some hard parts to make with that one. But with that being said, that's the first part of this episode. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let us know. Give us your comments. Give you a like. Give us your thoughts as well below. But what you got left for the people, Garrick?
As always, you never know what people are going through, so give someone a smile today. Yeah, let us know what you think, man. How do we have anybody too low, anybody too high, anybody should have been on the list that's in our honorable mentions? Let us know what you think about the list and who should be where on it. And when you think about this growth, you think about who is going to have the exponential growth next season that will affect the Pelicans season going in to next season, and then obviously hopefully into the playoffs and things like that. So as always, follow myself on Twitter at Garrick_Rattler. Follow my brother Raphael_Rattler. Follow the page at NO Basketball, no E. on Twitter and Instagram, anywhere else you follow your social medias. And most importantly, subscribe to New Orleans Network. We'll see y'all for 5 through 1.